All right, we're back. We've got everything ready to finish up. First thing we're going to do is take care of our tabs. We're going to tap those down with the hammer, but remember, metal is like Play-Doh, so the more you hammer, the more malformed it's going to be. So we're going to set that on there. I'm going to slide it down, use my hammer, tap that one. Okay, we've got those set up. We're ready to punch our holes. The small hand punch is hanging up in our locker number 4 with our other metal tools. We're going to set this up in the vise here in just a second so it's easier for us to use. Just want to remind you, if when you're punching, it doesn't punch all the way through, but instead it just kind of bends, this piece down here has probably gotten loose. So you need to make sure that's screwed in and it's poking out just a little bit like it shows there. And then we can punch, all right? Punch slides in here. This pipe should be stored underneath the table in these doors, the cabinets right there. So we've got that slid in there. Just remember that when we're punching, we don't want our knuckles underneath there, or that's going to hurt when you start to punch. Get your fingers out so you don't smash fingers. We're going to also remember to squeeze the sides together so that these sides are pulled in tight enough. We're going to slide that in there like that, get it aligned as best we can, roughly in the center, squeezing it together and punch. So as you can see, the hole does not line up, but that's because I was squeezing it straight. When I put the rivet in it, that's going to look pretty good. Oh, didn't go through. Finally did. Maybe we'll turn that up just a little bit. So you've noticed how I've rotated it just a little bit so it doesn't hit on the bottom. And I'm popping the handle all the way up to get the punch pulled out of the hole. All right, done with holes, ready for rivets. The rivet gun should also be hanging up in locker number 4. When you're ready for rivets, you need to come see me. We're going to get a rivet, load it in the rivet gun, place that in the hole, and making sure we're pushing it down, squeeze. Oh, got her in one shot. Some usually takes 2. There, that one took 2. These little bits are going to end up in the metal recycle can. We don't need those blades. All right, we're about ready for the handle. For the handle, we're going to get a dowel, also from me. We're going to set the dowel inside on one edge. And we're going to mark this end with the pencil so we know where to cut. So kind of delicate. We don't want to push on it. We don't want to cut it too big, but we definitely don't want to cut it too small. So with that in there, I'm going to take my pencil and looking down from the top, I'm just going to scratch a little line out with my pencil. come on over to our vise here, and we're going to clamp it gently, because if we clamp it too tight it will just crush the wood. We're just going to use a hacksaw to cut that piece off. Okay, so we're going to open the vise up. I'm going to put that mark fairly close, because if I have it way out here, it's going to flex that and maybe break the dowel. So I'm going to put it fairly close to the jaw of the vise, clamp it a little bit, get our hacksaw. I'm going to use my thumbnail to rest, just to get it started. Just back and forth, using the entire blade, supporting a little bit on the outside till it cuts off. You may end up with a little broken piece there. If you're pushing on it or pulling on it, that broken piece is going to end up kind of big. So try and keep it fairly straight. And if we've done it right, that should just barely fit right in there. We're ready to mark holes. We're going to punch a hole on each side of this. We're going to drill a hole in the dowel. We're going to put screws in, and basically we're done. We'll have to do some filing, clean up on all the sharp edges, maybe stamp our initials in it, grade it, and we're ready to go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark on our box where the hole needs to go. The dowel we're using is a 1/2 inch diameter dowel. So the middle of that is going to be 1/4 of an inch. We're going to use our dividers. We're going to use a ruler or a square or any type of device that has measure on it. We're going to set our dividers to 1/4 of an inch. And very carefully, we're going to scratch a light line on this edge. Doesn't need to be very big. Okay, we just want to make sure it's there. You don't want it to be super visible. Do that on both sides. So now I've got a line 1/4 of an inch down from that edge, showing where the top of the dowel will be if we do it right. Then we're going to find the center of that line. We're just going to use a ruler. I'm just going to use my dividers as a scratch-all. We're going to mark. We're going to take that back in a minute and punch it. And we're also going to mark this before we do that to find the center. So if I measure this line, it's going to be some funny number. I'm using an interesting tool here for a minute, and I'll explain why. So if I measure that line from edge to edge, I end up with about 1.5 inches. Okay, so 1/2 inch, or the middle, would be 3/4. So I'm going to line that back up. I'm going to use my dividers, and I'm going to put an arrow pointing at 3/4. All right, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Double check, it might not come out to exactly 1.5 inches again. So measure it again, and whatever it comes out being. So this side, I'm actually looking at about 1.25 inches. So half of that, well, half of a half, or sorry, half of 1 is a half, and half of 1/4 is 1/8. So we're looking at about 5/8 for the center, which is going to be, and this is kind of tricky to hold everything together. Right about, it's falling. There, let's double check that. Looks like I got it. So now we know where we're going to punch our holes. In here, we need to mark this so we know where to drill. We're going to use this guy. This is a combination square. So this piece gives us the 90 degrees. We've got a 45 degree back here, and this piece, this is what we're going to be using. This is a center finder. So we don't have to know any measurements. But if I take something round and I slide it into that V, it's going to center it for me. And now I can take my pencil and I'm going to draw a line along the edge of the ruler. So again, kind of awkward to do for a camera, but we're holding it right there. I've got my pencil. I'm going to draw a line. That's only one line. So we're going to do it again, but I'm going to turn it just a little bit. 2 lines is probably enough. So you can see they kind of crossed there. But if we do, let's do maybe 3 or 4 just to be safe. Make sure they all cross in the same place. Well, there's 3, and all 3 of them line up in the same spot. So I'm going to say that's good. I've found my center. I know where to drill. We're going to do it on the other side as well. And go make some holes. Turn it. Maybe 3 times. Okay, looks pretty good as well. Let's head over, punch some holes, drill some holes, put it together. So I already went and punched my holes. You can see them right there. They actually go through part of the hem. Just that's the way it worked out with our measurements in this diameter of dowel. It can be a little tricky to see your marks, so it's probably a good idea to actually center punch that. Take this over to the stake table, use the center punch, put a little dent right there, and then punch those 2 holes. We've already got that done, so now we're going to drill. This vise has some grooves in the jaw. So if you look, that jaw right there, it's got these grooves cut in it. That will clamp something round like this and keep it from twisting. We're not going to drill it this way, we need to drill it this way. So it also has this little groove right there. We're going to put that in and make sure it's in that groove, clamp it. That should keep it fairly straight. So I've lowered the table. We've got this crank right here that can raise and lower the table. When we get it down to the height, so I need to go down a little bit more so it clears the drill bit. When we get it down to the height we want, we do want to lock the table. On the back side over here, we have a clamp. And when we tighten that, the table now won't move. All right, so we're going to set this in there. I'm going to clamp this, again, not super tight. We don't want to crush the wood. I'm going to line this up before I even turn the machine on to the center right there. We don't need to drill very deep. So I'm just going to drill, maybe 1/2 inch deep. Start it. I had to make a little adjustment there as it started to drill. It's kind of wobbly. We're just going to drill that a little bit, pull the chips out. Notice after I drill a bit, I come up and that lets the chips out. I'm going to flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. Make sure it gets in that groove where it can't wobble very much. There we go. That should be straight, so I've got her tight. Get her lined up again. Looks pretty good. And it should be good. So now we're going to put it all together. We've got some screws. We'll use a screwdriver we find in locker number 3. We're going to try the screw in our hole and make sure we use the correct drill bit. We should be able to use a screwdriver and thread that in. If we use too small of a drill bit, it can actually split the wood. I think we've got it pretty close. You want to be careful when you're doing this, you don't stab your finger. You don't have to be pushing down real hard, mostly just twisting. Okay, so I think that's going to work. We're going to put that screw, we're going to line that hole up, put the screw through, and get it started in there. And just tighten that sucker up. Woo! Like that. You don't want to stab yourself. And flat blade screwdrivers are obnoxious. So I've got that one started. I'm going to flip it over. This will help me hold it. I'm going to put this side in as well. Everything lined up like that. Much easier to do this if you're at a table and you can set your box down on the table. But I'm too lazy to move my video camera. So here we are. All right, so we got that started. We would screw both of those all the way in, file all of our corners, clean it up, make it look nice, use the rubric and grade it, stamp our initials in it, have Mr. Turner look at it, and you're done. You've finished the Metals to Review practice tray.